Jorgina.
Hello. Okay, so hello, and welcome back to another episode of JORGY'S Stripping the Dipping. I'm your host. I'm your host, Jorgina Dona, where I'll be taking you on a journey where you and I can discuss anything and everything. But today it's about something. So, for
Absolutely.
today's episode, you and I have a guest from, I want to say Hollywood, but then again, I'll be lying if I say Hollywood because he's in England. However, his name is very freaking famous in Hollywood. Yes, let's welcome our guest for today, Denzel. Not Washington, it's Clarkson. It's Denzel Clarkson.
Hey, Jorgina, Georgie. So exciting to be on this platform with you. Thank you for having me. It's an absolute honor. And firstly of all, can I say big up your damn self, because I am so impressed, like happy and excited about what you're doing for the community, the conversations that you're having, and the work that you're doing. And on this very special day, I must say, happy International Women's Day out there too, to all of the women around the world.
Thank you so much. I'm saying thank you so much, representing the whole damn nation of women.
Exactly. But just as an intro for myself, it's your boy Denz from the ends of North London, England. Fastest brother on the track. They call me Michael Shoeblacker when I jump into the simulator. And I make F1 content. I do a bit of sim racing. I speak to very intellectual and very intelligent people like Jorgina, and have great
I'm the dumb one in that
too. So, super excited to be here as always.
Yeah, so I'm super excited that you're actually here, so we can actually have a proper conversation regarding a lot of areas, a lot of topics, serious ones, of course, but I'm basically very happy, excited and bloody nervous at the same time. We will be today talking about a very, we can say it's a very touchy area, but so we will be talking about DTS, not BTS. It's not Bantan Sunyantan, it's DTS, which stands for Drive to Survive, but I don't know who the hell is surviving with that show. So that's what we're going to talk about mainly. But then again, there are so many areas that we'll be talking with regard to the Formula One, and then of course we will be touching some areas that can be very sensitive as well, but we need to talk about those things. So shall we start?
Absolutely, Georgina. I think it's a great place to start, and I'll let you begin.
Okay. All right. My first question to you is regarding the DTS. So normally a show can be based on a sport, but we rarely see a sport changing its course over a show. We haven't seen anything like that anywhere. But we have seen it because of DTS, because of Drive to Survive, the whole drama that's been happening. So my question to you is DTS just a regular show, or has the show taken over the sport?
Sure, Georgina, and I think that's an excellent question to start this conversation off with. For myself personally, I think that DTS, or Drive to Survive, which ironically is not dropping too far away, it comes out this Friday on the 11th. It's more than just a regular show, because it has the ability to bring in new fans and to basically prophesize the sport into places of the world it wouldn't normally be shown. It gives us insight into the lives of the teams and the drivers and the mechanics and what it really fundamentally takes to run a Formula One team. But also, there's an element of debate which we're going to get into now with, is it good for the integrity of the sport when it has also this negative effect to change the sport from being, a competition more into just entertainment? And one of the most controversial decisions we ever seen in the 70 plus years of the sport was made in light for entertainment purposes, which is a nod to Drive to Survive. So personally, just to give some fans some perspective of my background into Formula One. My dad is a huge follower of it. I was born in 1995, and by 1998, I was sitting there with my dad watching a red car go around the circuit, otherwise known as Michael Schumacher. And back in that area, Georgina, just for context, we didn't have the level of access we had to the drivers. The sport was owned by a very wealthy, very exclusive man known as Bernie Eccleston. His views were very, outdated and very narrow-minded, you could say. He never really wanted, like people like you or I to have access to the sport, and it was very exclusive. This $1 billion,
basically, he was a white man with a white sport. He didn't want any other color of people going into the sport.
Of course, spot on there, Georgina. But because of the likes of Lewis Hamilton and, the emergence of, ethnic minority people coming into the sports and working their way in, it's definitely changed the landscape of it. And in that sense, now we're getting more access than ever with the new owners, Liberty Media, that want to kind of, basically enhance the fan base. They want to grow. They want to make Formula One almost like the Super Bowl in America, which is huge, and bring that entertainment value. But, you can't have basically a sport where you have competitors. You have people driving cars at over 200 miles an hour. It's very dangerous, the sport too. And essentially race directors, picking and choosing, manipulating the race like it's, like a toy car, like a Skate Electric's toy car on a rail, to basically predetermine the result or to fit into a certain narrative. And many of us feel that that's what we saw in Abu Dhabi, where Lewis drove the perfect race. He was outbeating his championship rival Max Verstappen on raw pace with 2 laps to go. An unfortunate incident happened where a driver crashed and they had to put a safety car out there, which is the procedure they use to allow the marshals to safely take the stricken car off the track. And the race directors, we feel, used the opportunity. They were optimistic to basically bend the rules for the sake of entertainment and basically manipulate the race, so it would make Lewis Hamilton and the championship rival Max go into a last lap showdown for the championship, which it was very unfair to Lewis, considering he had followed all the rules, and
which is, by the way, very ridiculous as well.
Absolutely. Bear in mind, we've never seen something like this in 70 years. The rules manipulated like that to basically predetermine an outcome like that. It's so unfair, to Lewis, who had maybe, not his strongest season due to the regulation changes of the floor and Mercedes having to readapt and redevelop the car to make it competitive. But my God, he put in some really awesome performances throughout the season, which we saw in Brazil when they gave him the
there was I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but there was this Spa race that we need to grab the attention regarding that, because if it was perfectly okay for them to give points and choose a winner without even a race, and they just went around 2 rounds so that they can just keep the money for themselves without refunding the fans, right? And then they went with the decision that after the person who just led the lap, he will be getting the points and this and that. But then again, a weird sort of because that was also happening behind the safety car. But then again, in Abu Dhabi, there was a different method that was used. Apparently, it was motor racing, which we were not familiar, obviously. So that is ridiculous. The inconsistency in this decisions making with the racing director and even the stewards. It's ridiculous.
So true, Georgina, and I absolutely agree with everything you said there. I think what it's come down to is, some people out there, they don't like almost the predictability that, Lewis and Mercedes work extremely hard. They did their homework early when the regulations were told to them. They went and built the best car for 8 years of championship domination. And now it became a time where these people that have influence, so, basically the rule makers, the stewards, the race director, they deliberately try to, go against the integrity of the sport, the actual spirit of the sport, to construct basically an artificial championship where every race, and it's not just Abu Dhabi, you also mentioned Spa, there's was also a
Yeah.
case in Jeddah. There's also been a case in Brazil. There's been many cases throughout the season where it seemed like they tried to fix the championship so it would essentially go down to the wire at the last race for the views and entertainment. And I don't think that's a sustainable way to run a sport. I don't think that is, the intention of how the sport has been run in the years that it's been built up leading up to this event. And absolutely, I think the fans' reaction to the controversy and the disasters or what happened throughout the season was fully justified. And hopefully moving forward now, we're going to be going back to sport, back to competition, back to integrity with these two new race directors that we have, which we've heard that they are zero nonsense, Jorgina. They want to see racing on the track. They don't want to see racing decided in the steward's room or, being scripted artificially. On top of that as well, we have these checks and balance systems being introduced with a video assistant referee. That's a third party.
That's one of the best decisions that they have taken. I need to agree on that. Yeah.
Absolutely. And, I think there is a place for something like Drive to Survive, and it's nice that, it's being able to bring the fans closer to the drivers and personality of the teams.
I mean,
but there must be a balance.
Exactly. There should be shows. There should be some sort of a show, a documentary, or the things that can make people understand and make people get their attention, where we can grab their attention towards Formula One, because Formula One is a motor racing competition, a sport, but it's not known by everyone. Now, if we take cricket or football or rugby, everyone knows that there's a sport like that. But when it comes to Formula One, not everyone aware of it. But through these shows, we can grab that attention. But there's a huge but, because a show should be a show and a sport should be a sport. A sport should not be overtaken by a show, because the show should be based on the sport, not the other way around. What happened in Abu Dhabi was the other way around.
Absolutely, Jorgina. Again, I agree 110% with you. And it's almost like the infamous saying. It's like, the dog walking the owner rather than the owner walking the dog. It was the complete opposite, and these people, they need to understand that, at the end of the day, we don't mind who is the winner, or we don't mind if we see the same winner all the time. All we want to see is a fair battle on the track, and
exactly
being able to go, wheel to wheel in a fair and integral manner. We don't want to see, things being artificially decided, and unfortunately the FIA and I feel the stewards fell short of that. So it definitely has changed the landscape of the sport. We've got this new series coming out in less than 3 days time now, and that also I think is going to show us quite a few things. But I think if they need to keep a series like that and they want it to have longevity, they need to be more honest with themselves and take a much more integral part to the sport and be more true to themselves.
True. Which actually comes to the next question I want to ask you. The contract that Max received was after the Abu Dhabi pantomime, right? So he received it afterwards, this huge contract. Do you believe he's worthy of that if it is solely based on the fact that he's the 2021 controversial title winner?
Yes, Jorgina, thank you. Another great question. And let me say, money. Because, that is what it essentially comes down to. And, to summarize my point, I would say no. I don't think he's worthy of this contract. I believe, because you also have to bear in mind that Red Bull are not a traditional Formula One team in a sense. They're not a manufacturer. Red Bull don't make cars. Their whole business model is based on PR and basically advertisement and trying to make a statement to keep relevant. So the more cynical part of me believes that, this move that Red Bull did to give Max a new contract was basically them trying to say, well, listen, this is our champion and we're going to try and put him on the same, pedestal as Lewis because they're now earning the same money. But my problem with that, Jorgina, is what does Max bring to the sport that Lewis brings to the sport that makes him valued at the same value as Lewis? Because you have to bear in mind, Lewis has been in the sport longer than Max. Lewis is much more commercially marketable than Max Verstappen. He's much more widely known and has much more followers on the internet, has a greater following than Max. Lewis has won more world championships, broken way more records than Max has achieved. And
Let's
just also in
emphasize
terms,
on that part. Let's
also, yeah,
emphasize on that part, because the guy who has 7 world championships, he worked his ass off to get all those things. Because of that, he received that payment, he received that contract. But after a controversial title, which was freaking unfair, if this contract is based on actually based on that result, saying that, oh, he is the champion, so he's worthy of this contract, then hell no. That is so wrong.
absolutely.
That is super wrong.
It's so true. And Jorgina, thank you for making that point, because that was going to segue into the next bullet point I was going to bring into this as well. It's what did these two drivers bring to the sport? Because okay, you could argue that Max has brought entertainment, controversial or not, but Lewis is really like one of the trendsetters of the sport, man. Because when you look at Lewis, he's not just a driver, he's an advocate of equal rights. He's an advocate for climate change. He's an advocate, for veganism. He's an advocate, for all of these great causes, diversity, basically standing up and having conversations that make people uncomfortable, but they're conversations that need to be said, and even in 2020, when you saw him wearing these t-shirts for all of these causes around the world, it meant so much to us, and it showed that, the sport is much more than just a sport, but has the influence to change people's lives and to inspire people across the world. So, my question is, how do you put Verstappen in terms of monetary remuneration on the same with Lewis, when Lewis adds so much to the sport? But I think it's also good to have a balance. I don't agree with what Red Bull have done, but I could see also from their perspective alone why they did it, Jorgina, because we also have to take into account, because Red Bull, won the title controversially, they managed to attract a new sponsor, or like they had an existing sponsor, a technical company called Oracle. They were a side sponsor, and now to be a big sponsor, to have their name on the side of the car and in the team name, they have paid Red Bull 500 million, for advertising. So if you look at the maths then, and we say that Red Bull received 500 million from a new sponsor, and they're only going to give Max, 55 million. That's only 10% of like the money they got from the new sponsorship. So when you look at it from that kind of scheme, you could understand why Red Bull did it. And leading into the other point I was going to make as well, as much as I don't respect Max's aggressiveness on the track and sometimes his unsportsmanship, we have to bear in mind that Max Verstappen is the only reason why Red Bull are even relevant. Because Red Bull have failed miserably. They've been, they had a good run with Sebastian Vettel between 2010 to 2013. They got complacent, and they also, maybe you could argue, had some bad luck, but that's part of the sport. And they failed to challenge Mercedes for a championship up until 2021. And Max, being the young driver, have to bear in mind Max has been in the sport since he was 17 years old. It's the only reason why Red Bull have even been able to challenge or even breathe on Lewis Hamilton's name, right? So you can understand from their point of view why.
The only thing Horner didn't fail was on complaining. He's very consistent on that. Of course, he's Windsor Spice.
He is the 5th member of the Spice Girls, because Christian is married to a Spice Girl, and I think he should be part of that band because he's always whinging, But like Max has technically saved that company, saved that brand. If it wasn't for Max, they probably wouldn't have a driver that could bring out or outdrive the car to challenge the other team. So from their point of view, it's clearly a statement, one, I think, to like try and pair Lewis, try and kind of like upsell themselves and keep themselves relevant, but two, they want to try and keep Max there as well, because they know if Max goes, who's going to drive for Red Bull based on the way that they treated Albon, Gasly, Kvyat? All these drivers have gone through the Red Bull Academy and had this severe treatment. Who's going to go and sign up for that? Nobody. So they had to give Max a big contract to sustain his interest and, probably to prevent him from going to another rival team, because they'd be in big trouble.
True. I mean, without him, there's no existence for the Red Bull, because I think they were in a tight pickle when it comes to the last year's title. If they didn't do everything, they did steal the damn title, but still, if they didn't even get that, then I think the outcome would have been greatly harmed to the Red Bull. So that's why they went for that. and
Absolutely.
it was a bloody scheme. It was disgraceful. I'm not saying that it's very fair, even though because that's ridiculous. They should try to find out in the performance way, not the stealing way, how to improve. But they just improved and developed their stealing method, which is ridiculous. But yes, without Max, there's no Red Bull surviving. Yes, true. So speaking of Red Bull, my next question to you is, Mercedes as a big player, that's one of the major big players in Formula One. So as a big player in F1, Mercedes is trying to represent the diversity, and we've seen it by many actions they've taken.
Mhm.
What do you think Red Bull represents?
Yeah, well, it's interesting you should mention that, Georgina, because almost Red Bull and Mercedes are almost two different things. And I'm gonna go with Mercedes. I really believe that with them, they are a global brand, Georgina.
Yeah.
Everybody around the world knows about Mercedes. They recognize the three-pointed star. You have famous popular culture songs, like Janis Joplin, "Oh Lord, won't you buy me a Mercedes," and all these things, So it's a huge
Yeah.
brand. And for Mercedes, they want to be sustainable. They want to try and touch platforms and break records and push, like boundaries that they've never been in before. And even for myself, Georgina, I can give you guys a short story.
You had a good
For me-
voice, though. I was just listening all these small parts that you were singing. You are good at singing, man.
Thank you, Georgina. Who knows? You might be able to cut me my first record deal. You never know. But funny enough, in my real life, kind of like what I do in real life, I work in the legal sector in the commercial property world. And when I was trying to break through in university, not many of them would give me the job, and a lot of them tried to say, "Oh, well, it's because you don't have experience." But I believe it's
Yeah.
something bigger than that. I think it's because of the
Yeah.
color of my skin.
You know
It's
how
in my
dumb
skin.
that question is? These people ask when you're hiring a person, they're asking for the experience from a school leaver, and a school leaver or a university graduate, they apply for the job to get the experience, but they want experienced people to get into the job. Does
This
that
is what
even
I
make
mean.
sense?
It's
For
so
God's
true.
sake.
It's such a contradiction, Judge, and that kind of like adds to my pain. They gave me a hard time. So I said, listen, whilst I'm not getting work experience at a law firm for now, where can I
Yeah.
go and do something that I find interesting and can also give me people skills, to develop in the future. So I said, you know what? I will see if I can apply for a job in a Mercedes-Benz dealership. And lo and behold, Georgina, I had a meeting with like a regional manager. We sat down. I was like maybe 21, 22 years old. He explained to me, he said, "What are your visions? What do you want to bring to the brand?" I explained. And he said, "Yes, I am the regional manager for Mercedes. And the things that you're telling me about diversity, inclusion, sustainability,
Damn,
that is
son.
what we as the company want." So working with Mercedes-Benz in the dealership, the kind of passenger car division was my first job. And you could see the
Yeah.
philosophy. And also just to give you guys a history lesson too, the company was, it was started by a guy called Carl Benz. He was a very good engineering mind. But the saying, behind a great man, there is a superb woman. And his partner was known as Bertha Benz, and she was the first to test drive a car. So imagine a
Wow.
female on
I
this
did
day.
not know that.
Exactly, imagine on International Women's Day, we look back at the attributes, the accolades, the achievements women made, and it was a woman who tested the first motor car, and there's a saying that the reason why like many people test cars acceleration from 0 to 60 is because Bertha Benz, the wife of Carl Benz, drove the first car from her house to her mother's house, and the journey was 60 miles. That is why, they say that they measure cars from 0 to 60, how quickly they can go. That is a nod to her. So, women have had a great place in, the automobile and, in life just generally. And Mercedes acknowledged that, they have these moments of, diversity and inclusivity,
Yeah.
trying to do that. And then to bring it back to Formula One as well, Georgina, you have to also
Yeah.
bear in mind that Lewis always been with Mercedes. Even in his junior days, he was, he's basically managed by Ron Dennis, the owner
Yeah.
or like the principal of McLaren at the time. They struck a deal with Mercedes. So Mercedes have always actually backed Lewis through his junior career, and he won his first championship with a Mercedes engine, and then he
Yeah.
promoted himself further to work with the Mercedes, works team.
I think when it comes for Louis, I'm so sorry I interrupted you.
Sure.
I think when it comes to Louis, when if you're comparing when he was in McLaren and then in Mercedes, um, even when he was in McLaren, he had some regulations to follow, like how he should have his hair and this and that. But he
Absolutely.
has more freedom in Mercedes. He's treated as a person, not under some, a boy in a English hostel sort of an environment. He's free in Mercedes.
Preach it, Georgina. It's so true, and that's correct. A lot of these teams, they have their own fundamental philosophies and ways that they are. McLaren, you could argue, was a very conservative team. They actually were
Mm-hmm.
trying to get Michael Schumacher one year, and Michael said no, because you people are telling me what sponsors you guys want me to have, and I'm my own German driver, and I want my own
Yeah,
sponsors. So even in that element, but bringing it back to Lewis, yes, it's true that they wanted Lewis to have short hair. They had a very conservative like way of Lewis, and Lewis was not
yeah,
maybe given the freedom of speech to speak his mind and to
yeah,
like basically adopt these causes back then. But at Mercedes, they've always had that respect for Lewis, and they've always done that. And I think why Lewis is even more like like listenable, and why he's even more like worthy to have that platform is because he's successful, and he stands for all of these positive causes that I mentioned earlier too. So that also reflects Mercedes, and being an employee of them once upon a time in my life, I can definitely say that it is the same even on the outside of the Formula One team, that they have these values and they want to continue to push for these great causes.
yeah. But let's come back to the question that I was asking from you regarding Red Bull. Keep in
Yeah,
mind that what Red Bull represents in Formula One when it comes to the diversity. But keep in mind that Red Bull has Helmut Marko, and also Red Bull fired two top executives with a diversity issue.
yeah,
What do you
absolutely.
think
And
Red Bull actually represents?
well, Georgina, yeah, to come back to your original question, yeah, with Red
Yeah,
Bull, I don't think that they're there yet, Georgina. I think that they're still in the Stone Ages with certain things. I think that,
I don't think
their
they
whole
will ever
business
get there.
it's true, and I think that with them, I think that their whole philosophy is on like a different platform. You see the
Mm-hmm.
class that Toto Wolff has and the compassion that he has, but then when you compare that to Christian Horner, he can be very narrow-minded. He can say very arrogant and ignorant comments. He was
Well, that
heard the
guy
other
doesn't
day
even know
saying
what he's talking about. He doesn't
exactly.
even know what his mouth is saying.
True, the other day he said, "Oh, women only watch Formula One because of like the handsome drivers," and I said that
Uh-huh.
is BS. That is completely the furthest thing away from the truth. And they don't know. People like them, Georgina, they need a lot of
Yeah,
education. But I think also, Georgina, it just speaks to the sort of company and the sort of thing they are. They're not like Mercedes, where they're trying to build for the future or have long-term sustainability. Their thing
yeah,
is just publicity, and it's trying to like make like it's basically Red Bull almost. They're like a diss rapper in the rap community. They try and say lots of like controversial things, like a Takashi 69 or these elk rappers that don't have much talent or they don't really have like a history, and to just try and keep themselves relevant with the giants, they must have to like try and go out of the boundaries, go kind
yeah,
of like more disrespectful, push people the wrong way to try and like probe a response. But yeah, I think that they need a lesson, and that's why it's a shame that F1 have moved away from the Re-Race as One campaign, because it made it that drivers and teams and team principals had to go and educate themselves. And I hope that even if they're not going to have the kneeling before the parade lap, and they're not going to do these physical gestures, that at least behind closed doors, that they make it a responsibility for the teams to have these programs, because Mercedes have it. They have Accelerate 25, which is basically a program, for those who don't know, where they're trying to recruit children from less represented backgrounds, in
mm-hmm.
science, technology, English, maths, these brilliant subjects, the future designers, the people that are not just going to build cars for Formula One, but the technology
Yeah,
from Formula One cars is going to go into road cars. That's going to make the world much better, much cleaner, much more beautiful for the environment. So I hope that the FIA, and we have a new, even just a new president to the FIA, Mohammed Bell, I can't even pronounce his last name, but basically a new president to the FIA,
Yeah.
from a more like Muslim background. And I really pray that this is the start of the revolution, and we're gonna see this change. So absolutely, I think that will force teams like Red Bull to pull up their socks and to do better.
Well, okay. Let's just say, let's pray for that, okay? Because we
Absolutely.
all want to be, yeah, we all want that. Let's pray for that. But the VP is also Escalen's wife, and they're having brunch.
True.
Just because we can pray. Of course, we want that. We need that change, but there's a reality that we need to see here, and there's a way of things that's happening around here. So looking at the way things played out, the way that the whole drama laid out as well, there was a recording. If not for F1 Jordan, we wouldn't have known about it, because we never had anything to do with, we never went back to check on the videos or anything regarding Formula One after Abu Dhabi, but the FIA already knew about it. They admit that they were aware of it, but even though they were aware of it, they took 30 days to start an investigation, which fans forced them to do. Okay, if the fans were not forcing these people to do all these things, they would have just let it go, making that point, right? So yes, we really do need to see that change. For God's sake, for the love of at least a tiny bit of sport love, we need to see that change. But well, there's a reality check we all need to see, because it might not happen.
It won't happen overnight, George.
Yeah,
I think
it might not happen over. Yeah, exactly. It might take a long time, but during that time period, at least if it's gonna happen, then it's way better, at least for the coming younger generation.
Absolutely, and that's what we want to see. And just to correct my point earlier, his name is Mohammed Ben Al Salyam. So my pronunciation for his last name there. But of course, we are seeing a slow shift, but you're correct. And I think also that's testament to the people, testament to the fans, testament to the communities like the 44, F1 Jordan, Quick Stop F1, all these great platforms, that have not stopped. They've been relentless with, the kind of encouragement and also kind of the message that they're making very clear about how they want change. And they've given basically the FIA no choice, because without us there is no them. I think, through seeing
when
the
it comes
response,
to a governing body, it should be a governing body. It should not play for a side that they're supposed to be governing the sport. They're not supposed to rule out just favoring one particular team or person. But it was going in a wrong way. So yes, this is not going to happen overnight. It's going to take a long time. But it's very unfortunate. You know how I feel about this? I really feel very unfortunate to even say that this is not going to happen overnight. This is going to take a long time, and this and that. These are not supposed to happen in this way. These are supposed to be already happened. It's supposed to be already taken in place. We have color issues. I don't know what the hell that color issues that white people have. That's a white problem. We don't have that problem. And then to get the justifications to make the sport keep intact with the integrity, we need to wish for these things. We need to pray for those things. These are not the normal way, but yes, hopefully one day, 1 hour, 1 minute at a time, I will pray for God that these things should happen, must happen, and we get to see that it's happening.
Absolutely, it's so key. It's really key. And of course, I think that we're taking the steps in the right direction, and it will come. It will come, because if if you in the 90s, if you ask my dad, would there be like a black Formula One driver that would like break all the records and he'd be basically creating a platform?
Yeah, your dad will be asking, did you hit your head somewhere?
Yeah, he'd be telling me to shut up because he's too busy watching Mika Hakkinen and Schumacher go through a rouge, and go free wide on demonstrate. Yeah, so it will happen. But like you said, it's sad that it's going to take so long. I think, as always, my parents used to say to me, difficult roads lead to beautiful destinations. And
Yeah,
I think the fact that we're having these conversations now, that we're confident to have these conversations, that people
exactly.
have to listen to us. They have to.
Yeah.
It is
Listen,
gonna make
people,
that
listen,
difference.
please, for God's sake, for the love of sport, please listen to us.
Of course.
So I need to ask you this question, Denzel. What was F1 for you before Abu Dhabi, and has it changed after last year's title battle?
Absolutely. That's another sensational question, Georgie. And yeah, for me, before Abu Dhabi, for me, Formula One was, a competition for technical innovation. Brilliant. Formula One's always been about basically, pushing the boundaries of what a car with four wheels can do, and having the bravest drivers, the most talented drivers from around the world compete, for one single honor and a team championship too. So yeah, that's what it meant to me beforehand. But now, I think that Abu Dhabi has definitely shown us that that cash is king, that it's about the commercial side of the sport rather than actually the actual spirit of the sport sometimes. And that it's a spectacle, and that has its pros and it has its cons, because on one aspect, I'm glad to see that we're branching off into more places of America. We're seeing, like these drivers that are having their own personalities, and I remember many years ago, before the start of like the American Grand Prix, they had this introduction for the drivers, and Lewis came out to this awesome music, like a boxer, like a gladiator. And I was like, so awesome that, they're bringing this value to the sport. But at the same time too, like we touched on with the likes of Drive to Survive and these other commercial entities as well, we don't want it to just become like a scripted kind of like circus, with the race directors being like the class clowns of the circus or amusement park.
I mean, if you want to go and watch a scripted one, then I'd rather watch Cars, the animation. I would love to watch that rather than this bullshit, At least
and even Georgie. And even with Cars, George, even that has more meaningful stories and more like kind of like lessons behind that teach children more than what these lot are trying to do, which is just like corporate greed. Like you mentioned earlier, which is a great point. How do you make people travel all the way to Belgium, in standing in the rain for hours, in almost hypothermic conditions, and you put the safety car out there, and you just put it out there just so within the technical rules of the sport, you can say that there was a race, but there was no race in terms of
exactly. F1 should understand the point 101 rule of any sport or anything, that is the fans. Without the fans, there's no F1, there's no existing of anything, because if there are no fans, there's no income for them. So at least they should have considered that, and they should have respected the fans who actually bloody waited under that pouring weather. They were waiting and waiting and waiting. The least they could have done was refund. At least they could have done was, if they can't refund, they would have given a free ticket for this year's season. At least. But they didn't give a flying damn about it. They just went on with the 2 lap behind a safety car, and then they just didn't even bother to mention about it. And I watched all these videos with the media, the drivers, and only Louis, as I can remember, mentioned about refunding or getting the money back to the fans.
It's so true, and it's just, again, it kind of is going to probably bring us on to the next question I know you're going to ask me, but that is Lewis. He always wears heart on his sleeve. He's a genuine guy. He's a sportsman. He's an ambassador. He represents so much with what is right with the sport and the direction.
Okay, so let me ask this question then from you. As a black guy, I personally don't like to use these colory words because it's actually ridiculous in my mind. To start with, even it's bullshit, because even white is of color, so I don't know. But since we are using it in this world to answer questions and all, so I'm so sorry for using these words though. As a black guy, so as a black guy, how do you see Lewis's situation in F1?
Well, Georgie, I think that Lewis is it's almost like Lewis is living through me, when I think about Lewis. He is like the epitome of like what the normal black man or ethnic minority will face in the Western world, you know, because just to give people context about Lewis as well, he wasn't brought up with a silver spoon in his mouth, okay?
Yeah.
His dad had to work 3 jobs, remortgage the house several
Yeah.
times just to kind of even make Lewis's career a possibility. You know, Lewis has always grown up with that humbleness, that sense of knowing his roots, knowing where he comes from, knowing his people. And, you know, even from just the early days of his career, he was subject to lots of racial abuse. You know, I remember one race in Spain where the fans went there in blackface. And, you know, there's lots of, you know, historical, political...
when I saw that video clip, my heart felt so heavy. I swear to God, I don't know how a person would bear such treatment. And he had to keep his mouth shut. There was nobody addressing that issue. And imagine him being in a position. And it's just, you know, us seeing that clip, if we are uncomfortable just seeing that clip like that, imagine how he would have felt. How all these colored people will, every day they're going through this. Every single day they're going through this. Yeah, I don't know how they are. Oh my God, I don't even want to, you know, I'm actually lost at words because it's very hard to explain the feelings that I'm getting because it's
emotional.
It's not normal. I don't know how you guys actually bear all these things because I haven't personally experienced it because I'm living in Sri Lanka and Sri Lankans, actually, they don't have any race issues here. So we have never experienced those things. Because we have Muslims, the Buddhists, the Christians living together here. So we have never seen a person's color as a different thing. So it's very weird for me. To be honest, from my it's from my perspective, it's freaking weird for me. I can tell you an example for me. When I was in Singapore, I studied in Singapore. So the first time I had to introduce myself, the lecturer was asking all these people to introduce themselves. So in Singapore, the Singaporeans, the way they introduced themselves was one person stood up and the person was saying, hi, I'm her name. And then she was like, I'm Indian Singaporean. And the other one was a Chinese person. And the person was saying, I'm Chinese Singaporean. And then I was like, that was super weird for me because I was not familiar with that whole thing. And then I was wondering, what the hell does that even supposed to mean? And then the lecturer was asking me where I'm from and to give my introduction. And then I said, hi, my name is Dona and I'm a Sri Lankan. And then the lecturer was asking me, Sri Lankan what? And I was like, Sri Lankan. I was like, what do you want me to say? Sri Lankan something? I was super confused. And then she was like, no, what are you? And then I'm like, Sri Lankan Buddhist? I don't know what you expect me to say. So it was so weird for me, you know? So I have never experienced that. And it was like, I don't know how people live with that. I really don't know. And after seeing the whole Louise issues, to be honest, in Sri Lanka, we didn't understand, from my point of view, I didn't understand the whole issue with the Black Lives Matters, okay? Because we haven't experienced that, Denzel. So we have no clue what it was. So there was this whole thing going around about all lives matters. And in my point of view at that time, I was thinking, why it's only Black Lives Matters? Of course, it's all lives matters. Everyone is having issues and this and that. Okay, please bear with me with this. And then after some time, when I came on Twitter, I was on Twitter since from 2012, but I was not that active. Only after Abu Dhabi, I started using Twitter a lot because that was bloody bullshit. Yeah. And I couldn't bear that, okay? Because I can't stand injustice. I have an issue with that. I can't stand injustice. Sure. Even if it's a boss, I would dare say straight away to the face that, dude, you fucked up, you need to clean up. Because I can't bear it. So after seeing Abu Dhabi, I went on Twitter and I was like, what the hell is happening? I tried to search for everything, you know, getting involved with all these tweets and the spaces and everything. And then slowly, I understood the whole thing about this color, the Black Lives Matters, and then I was like, I felt so bad for myself because I didn't understand the whole thing at first when I was thinking about the All Lives Matters, because we haven't experienced that. But after getting to know this, I was like, I felt like how big of an issue this is, and to see all these tweeting the racism tweets that been targeting Louis all this time, even after this title battle, the orangutans, the bananas, the monkey tweets and all this. I was like, oh my bloody God, what the fuck is this? I'm so sorry for cursing, but I was like, what the bloody hell is that?
Yeah, Jorgina,
fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, it's true. And Jorgina, like I'm glad like you said that, because that's the thing. Like, we're all learning and we're all seeing kind of like true things like rise to the surface. But yeah, this is kind of the common thing that ethnic minority people, Black people, Asian people, when they come to like England or when they're in Europe, this is a very common thing.
Sorry, I am so sorry, Denzel, because I am very ashamed that without knowing, I was thinking about the All Lives Matter was right, and then only I got to know what exactly was happening in the world regarding this. So I feel really ashamed that I even said, yeah, All Lives is Matter was right, because I didn't know the behind story. I am so sorry for that. I really am.
You don't have to apologize, because that's the thing. You didn't know it. It didn't come from a place of hatred or that you're putting like Black people down.
Yeah, that was very new for me. I never realized it.
It's so true, and bringing it back to Lewis, this is what he faced, when he was a kid, Jorgina. There's certain like when he was on the track, there's certain kids that their parents told them not to hang out with Lewis. He's a bad influence. So like Black people have a bad reputation. So stay away from him. Don't share your gloves with him. He went through a lot of terrible, traumatic things that no kid should ever have to experience growing up, But the thing with Lewis is that his parents at least, educated him from an early stage, like my parents have too. And they've always said, Denz, Lewis, you're always gonna have to work 10 times harder than your peers. You're always gonna, when they get away with doing stuff, you're not gonna get away with it. They're gonna judge you much more hardly. So that's why Lewis, he holds himself to such a high standard. That's why when he doesn't win a race, you can hear in his voice this frustration with himself.
That is taking a toll on you guys. That is taking a huge toll on you guys. It's not fair. It's not freaking fair. That is so fucking unfair. Okay, I mean, others can do whatever the hell that they want, but you're having standards and a frame that you need to fit in, and you're not supposed to process your emotions the way the others are processing. Because if you do, then that's not good. That's not acceptable. But for the others, it doesn't matter. That is bloody bullshit. That is fucking bullshit. This is messed up, man. This is really messed up.
It's crazy, Jorgina, and I share your frustration and fury about it too, because even me, I've experienced it from a systematic level in school, in work as well, and it's just one of those things where it ultimately, like, either you kind of deal with it or you crumble. And like you said, it shouldn't be that way. It should be like a fair playing field for everyone, and everyone should have the opportunities, and things should be based on merit rather than the way someone looks, or the color of their skin, or their gender, or sexual orientation, or preference. This world has a lot of growing up to do and a lot of learning to do, but having conversations that we have today, I think, is the catalyst for this change. And this is why I'm really honored, and thankful too, to have this opportunity, to have a conversation, to have a respectful, meaningful, deep conversation, and I admire you, for at least, you also taking a look at yourself and, saying, well, this is what I could learn, and maybe this is how I could change or play a part too. So, I think if we continue on that basis, we're going to see some really beautiful things happen in the next couple of years. Even sadly, when Lewis unfortunately does move on, which I think I'll cry. But I think that the message won't be lost, and I think hopefully that we'll continue to see things in the right direction.
Yeah.
And definitely, we should all be able to come as one. I think that's the aim.
Okay. So, coming back to the other question, Trevor Noah, right? So there was this clip I found on TikTok It's actually based on the Ukrainian war with the Russians. I will try to play it so that you guys can hear.
A lot of people on TV didn't expect a war like this to happen in, let's say, certain neighborhoods.
This is not a developing third world nation. This is Europe.
These are prosperous middle-class people. These are not people trying to get away from areas in North Africa. They look like any European family that you would live next door to.
What could be a difference here from other conflicts, that could seem very far away, in Africa or Middle East or whatever. I mean, these are Europeans that we're seeing being killed.
This isn't a place, with all due respect, like Iraq or Afghanistan. This is a relatively civilized, relatively European, I have to choose those words carefully too, city where you wouldn't expect that or hope that it's going to happen.
Wow. That was you choosing your words carefully? That was the careful version? So what were you going to say if you weren't choosing your words carefully? I just hope the next time this happens, it happens back in the Middle East where it belongs. Like, here's the thing, people. Here's the thing. Beyond the racism, right? Like, let's forget the racism. Oh, how I wish we could forget about the racism. You do realize that until very recently, fighting crazy wars was Europe's thing. That was Europe's entire thing. That's all of European history. They even had something called the 100 Years' War. You understand how long that is? That's like a decade. They got a Nobel Prize because they stopped fighting. Imagine that. Now people are going to be like, oh, to see this in Europe, to see this. Like, I'll tell you now, I don't know about you, but I was shocked to see how many reporters around the world, by the way, seem to think that it's more of a tragedy when white people have to flee their countries. Because I guess what? The darkies were built for it? I mean, you see how they run in the Olympics, Peter. Clearly, God has given them this talent for a reason. I totally agree. I mean, even if this wasn't a war, these people would probably be fleeing their homes for fun. It's just who they are. Back to you guys in the studio.
So, that was actually... I don't even know what to say. I hope you guys heard it. I'm not quite sure. Did you hear the clip, Denzel?
Yeah, I did, Jorgina, loud and clear, and yeah.
So basically, that's the mindset of the media regarding Ukrainian Russian issue, because they are basically apparently they are not from a third world developing nation or the African countries or Afghanistan or Iraq. They are supposed to be civilized Europeans, white people who are apparently fighting each other. It's like what do you call that? Harry Potter magic or something for them? I don't know. So my question to you is, what's your take on these comments, and do you think F1 is any different when it comes to the racism, since it's also a freaking white sport?
Yeah, again, very, very deep question, Georgina. I'm more than happy to answer it as well. Yeah, like, firstly of all, I just want to say, that my hearts are out there with, those affected in the invasion, in the conflict right now happening between Ukraine.
So
and of course, we don't, of course, and that's what we want, human rights more than anything. But to bring it back to the question, like, Georgina, it's so ironic in a way, the hypocrisy and the contradiction of these European people. Because imagine now they're in a situation where the Ukrainian people are being persecuted essentially, and they're trying to evade war, from the actions of Vladimir Putin. They're desperate to try and run and escape. But they're the same people that are trying to persecute Africans and, refugees and people that have also tried to, either immigrate or move for a better life, or they're trying to also, move away from conflict. And what I want to say is, what in the right mind gives these Ukrainian people the right, to be racially abusive, to behave the way that they've behaved, the lack of humanity, the lack of compassion, the lack of empathy they showed towards African people when they're being put in an almost very similar, if not identical position to the ways that African people are being treated. And to round off my point,
well, apparently they are civilized and we are not.
This is the thing, and also it's crazy that how, like, when it's a European country or like a westernized country that's going through a disaster. Oh, this is terrible. Yes, we must help them. Yes, this is terrible. Yes, we must condemn, the dictators. Yes. But then when it comes to like, black people or people from other ethnic minorities, two monkeys were not given. And what's crazy is that black people, Asian people, people from ethnic minorities, they're the reason why these westernized countries are the way they are today, in terms of, building them, in terms of developing them, in terms of supporting them during the war. We have even in England, the likes of like Mary Seacole or Florence Nightingale, like women from like Africa and the West Indies that came to England during the war to provide medical support, to soldiers that were serving during the war. So how is it, and I think Tupac said it the best, how is it that they got money for war, but they don't have money for the poor? And also, how is it that they can justify this level of prejudice thinking too? I agree, it's definitely a contradiction. It's definitely wrong. And, it's funny how, like, they can point fingers at other people, but they won't point fingers at themselves and look at how even there's bias within themselves in the way that they look and the way they treat other people.
Yeah. I mean, I'm honestly lost with words, because for God's sake, these people are supposed to be journalists, for God's sake, and they are sending the wrong message to the world. They can keep their white racist asses to themselves if they are doing a journalistic job on air. They're supposed to be, when you're having a professional work ethics, when you're having a professional job, there are certain ways that you should be behaving. It's applicable for every single person. It's not only for the black people, it's not only for the Asians, it's for every single person. If you're in front of a camera, you have the responsibility of behaving yourself, because you're sending a message to somebody who's listening, who's watching you. It can be a kid who's watching you. If you're sending the wrong message, then that's going to be in that kid's mind, and he will be growing up into some sort of a horrible person if you're sending a wrong message. And these people are using media, these big, humongous channels, to spread racism. What the hell is this? Okay, they should be talking about Ukrainians and Russians as nations fighting against each other, not these civilized Europeans. They are not Africans. They are not from a third world country. They are not from Iraq or Afghanistan. Does that even make any sense?
It's not even relevant.
What the hell does that even mean?
It's not even relevant, Jorgina. You're absolutely on the money. It's correct.
Oh my God.
That's the thing with these people. They haven't been corrected or factually, like basically put under pressure for a long time. So they think that their actions and the things that they're saying is acceptable. But I agree with you. It's anything but acceptable. It's a disgrace, really, really, really disrespectful, and almost inhumane the way that they speak about, the African people or, people from other parts of the world because they're not European. And it must stop, and to answer your question, bringing it back to Formula One, you can almost draw like actually a lot of similarities in a very sad way, because it's the same thing, they wanted to be performative and they come out and said, we race as one. But we went from we race as one to it becoming a race against one in Abu Dhabi. And throughout Lewis's career, when they've been much harder on him and they've held him to a much higher standard than they hold any other drivers or they hold any other authorities for the way that they are, and it's absolutely terrible. So, in these spaces, the Twitter spaces where we're speaking about Abu Dhabi and what we'd like to see in the future, we mentioned that, we'd like to see a safe space for people like Lewis, athletes like him, which, are not, like basically represented or not supported or given like the safe space that he should be given.
Treat them equally. If you're gonna get angry at a black guy, get angry at the white guy in the same manner, on the same point.
For doing the same things.
Yeah, doing the same things. If Max Verstappen could storm out from the Jeddah podium and had no issues, then Lewis also can storm out from the podium and no one can dare to say a single word. But do you think that's going to happen? Oh my God, no. Those F1 fans will be blabbering a whole shit of bullshit again on Twitter. Oh my God, look at this guy. He has 7 world champions and he doesn't even know how to behave and blah, 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 blah. You know how they run their mouth.
Exactly. No, that's the thing with these people, and honestly, Georgie, it's the way that they've conditioned like us to see black people. They've conditioned us to see black people as a threat, to see black people, as lower, to see black people, almost as inhumane, and it's so wrong. And the way that they want black people is
maybe they're running out of their mumbo jumbo talent.
Exactly.
So they see you guys as a threat.
Exactly. But the thing is that they want us to be humble. They don't want us to be outspoken. In the UK we have like a player called N'Golo Kante. He honestly, Georgie, I'll send you a photo of him. He's so like adorable. He's like 5'6". He's very very kind-hearted and very easy with his words, and they love him because he's not controversial. But that's not how it should be. If a black person wants to be as thought-provoking, if they want to be as loud, if they want to be as controversial as they want, then they should be. And whilst I don't agree sometimes with how Kanye West behaves, I also see how like the racial element comes into that too, because people are not like angry with him because really of what he's saying. They're angry with him because he's a black man saying the things that he's saying, and they're not used to that.
They're angry at the wrong correct reactions. They're angry at the wrong point.
Exactly. Yeah, of course. And this is something that we've seen. They don't like to be challenged. They almost like makes them start shaking because they're not accustomed to seeing people like me in high positions. People like Lewis breaking world records. Lewis isn't only just breaking records, he's making records that you wouldn't even think would exist. Lewis is the only driver on the grid to ever win a race in every single season he's ever participated. You know how crazy that is? Imagine, there have been years.
What's crazy though? You know what's way crazier than that? So for last year's season, everyone was saying, the majority of the Verstappen fans were saying he's deserving, he's worthy because he had the best season ever. He was this and that, and he had this race wins and this and that. But the thing is, like in the end of the season, with the last 3 to 4 races, Lewis actually went equal points just by 3 races. He caught up with him just by 3 races. So I don't know who's the best or whatever. There might be a questionable statement there.
It's true, Jorgina, and this is the thing. This is why you have to put an asterisk next to the number 1, because it's very questionable and it's very fun. I'm not just accusing Verstappen fans of doing this. I think
no.
Slightly, guilty of it. But it's funny how like when Verstappen fans never wanted to acknowledge statistics or factual things with the sport.
Exactly.
But then when it came down to the championship, they wanted to rely on the fact that
you are a Lewis fan, I'm a Lewis fan, so we can be biased. And Verstappen fans, of course, they're going to be biased. But when it comes to the sport, I am a Formula 1 fan before Lewis fan. You're a Formula 1 fan before Lewis fan. There are people who actually love the sport for its sport. The integrity. We love the sport for the sport, not because of the drive. Of course, I can say I love F1 because of Lewis, of course, but at the same time, we love the motor racing sport as well. So there are things that we see. We saw what happened in Abu Dhabi, so we can't just ignore and say, oh, we can't justify that result. If it would have been a normal race where Lewis lost the race in a normal way, then it's just a lost championship. That's it. We move on. We're excited for the 2022 season, but that's not what happened. That's the issue here.
Yep.
That's the issue where we are having these arguments, we are having these talks. That's why we are having all these things, because Lewis has lost a lot of races as well. He was not continuously winning all the 7 titles. He had winning years, he had losing years. Everyone has that. It's very fair when it comes to the sport. Somebody loses, somebody wins. But this was not a normal winning or losing racing incident. This was a bloody race fixing incident, which is totally different. Apparently, some of the F1 pundits can't identify the difference between a racing incident and a race fixing.
Well, that's a good point you mentioned there, Georgina. And it is, again, cash is king. And a lot of these people, they don't want to speak out in injustices because they're too comfortable. And they're from a place of privilege where they feel like if they do the right thing, that, it's going to be a threat to their stability. And that's wrong, 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 wrong. No matter what it is, if something is wrong, you must call it out. And that's why, a lot of us are going to boycott Drive to Survive, I'm sure. A lot of us are not going to be, like maybe watching, let's say the footage, or even the Sky Sports coverage in maybe the legal way. That's the reason.
Oh my God, did you see the tweets, the replies that everyone was posting about? Apparently that shit is a very bloody biased one. It was, the title says dual, but it was only talking about one person.
Exactly. And this is the crazy thing, Georgie. Like the people, they see money before they see the people, and it's the people that make the money. So yeah, they've literally got like their prerogatives the wrong way around. But
I mean, we understand even the sports or whatever it is, it comes down to the business, it comes down to the money, but still there's a way of earning it. This is not a shell company. It's a sport.
Exactly.
For God's sake.
That is where integrity comes into it, and they must exercise integrity. They must exercise fairness. They must exercise diversity. They must exercise inclusivity. And until they do those things, we won't stop, So that's, what we're really here to achieve. But also probably, to round this podcast off, and probably I actually wanted to ask you the question. I wanted to step in your shoes and put something kind of like throw the ball in your court. So I'm going to do my best Georgie impersonation here. But, I wanted to ask you, Georgie, it is International Women's Day today. And, as a great woman yourself, what would you like to see in F1? First question. What would you like to see in terms of women in terms of F1? And, also, what would you like to see for women just generally around the world? What would you like to see? I'd like to kind of like let you, have that say.
I actually want to say that in F1, there should be women represented way more than that, because Jamie has been winning a lot of trophies, a lot of titles, but she's still stuck with the women's racing, and she deserves an F1 seat. So why not give her one? But no one's actually talking about it. No one wants to address it because, well, apparently it's not in their pockets. So yes, there should be a chance, because I don't think we should be separated by genders or skin colors or anything. We should be valued, and we should be graded with our talents, our skills. There should be a space, a place where we can actually select people with their pure out of their talent, not because of their race or the nationality or the gender, because it's ridiculous when it comes to the jobs. When we apply for jobs in US or UK or the European countries, there's a set of questions that we need to answer first. Whether what sort of a nationality we are from, whether we are Hispanic or Latin, or are we heterosexual or bisexual, or what our sexuality is, even the gender, whether we are female or male, or we don't want to talk about, we are not identifying as any. Those are not the questions when you're applying for a freaking job. You should be asking the questions regarding the job, not whether your mom is a Colombian or whether your dad is a Japanese, or I really don't get that system, seriously. So I would like to see a place where people, women or men, woman has way more talent than the man who are in the same job, then the woman should be getting that chance, not the man. It's not about the gender, it's about the talent and who gets the work done. But it's not the case in this world. It's a different world. So I really don't get that. But hopefully, just like I'm praying for the F1 to be better, I'm hoping that this world will be better in a way, in a proper mannered way as well. Yay for me, man.
Yeah, no, like Jorgina, I think you said...
we bleed once a month. We do the chores. We do the feeding for the families. We work our ass off. We are doing all these responsibilities and all these bloody hell, all the work, and we can end up dancing with heels as well at night on parties and still manage to go to work and do the work next morning.
It's so true, and you speak to that as well, Jorgina, and I agree, it's really unfair that women have had this, genetic bias against them for so long,
Yeah, it should be all regarding the talent.
It should be about the ability, and
it applies for the same way. If the man is way talented and skillful than the woman, of course, give the damn job for the man. It's not about the gender, it's about the talent and who gets the work done.
Sure, absolutely. And I think kind of what I was going to touch on is it's refreshing to see Mercedes pick up this new program, this Accelerate 25. It's nice that we have drivers like Lewis that care, and he has the 44, Mission 44, where they're trying to find, the next brilliant set of stars, regardless of their sexual preference, their sexuality, their race, their religious beliefs. That they're looking to bypass all of that and just base it on ability, and trying to. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be a Harvard graduate or you have to be Albert Einstein, but it's finding roles and finding.
Sometimes I think this is my point of view. Sometimes there can be way more talented ones who are not having the proper financial status to finish their education, but they can be very talented and very some sort of Albert Einstein sort of a genius might be there among those people, but without money, who can't finish their education with only pure talent. So we need to focus on giving a helping hand for those who are willing to study and complete their studies, but who actually don't have the opportunity or the money, the financial stability to do all those things, because there might be a solution for HIV among those brains. Who knows? But they will never get the chance because they don't have the stability, the financial stability to improve that part. So, yeah.
It's so true, Jorgina, and I'm so happy, and this kind of
I might sound ridiculous though.
No, honestly, I honestly don't think you do. I think that you are speaking the truth, and you are speaking the raw facts, the truth, the honesty, the real things that people need to hear, and it's the people that are stubborn, the people that come from privilege, the people that don't understand, that need to listen to people like you, listen to people like me, listen to us, and actually educate themselves, because there's a lot to be learned, and it's not necessarily to say that Rome will be built in a day, or things that will change overnight, as we said before. But that.
For an example, when you get sick, if there's a black doctor, you will definitely go and get treated. You won't be checking the skin color there. So why do
you'll just be worried about your life? Exactly.
Yeah. So why the hell would you? Exactly. Why the hell would you actually consider the skin color when it comes to the jobs and the other opportunities? Why? It's just true. An ego, the bloody ego that they have. I really don't. I actually don't understand that mindset. I really don't get the reasoning behind it, and I don't want to understand that reasoning as well, because it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's absurd, and it has no place in society, Georgie. But we just need to continue doing what we're doing, lead by example, and we'll see the change we want in the world. So, and again, just big up to you. I'm so excited about this journey. I'm so excited about the work that you're doing. And another thing I'll say to you: don't ever change for anyone. You continue being you.
Thank you so much.
Talk the thing, my girl. I'm so emphatically impressed, and moved and touched by the work that you're doing. And I know
thank you so much. And I'm so grateful and very, very, very happy that you actually accepted the invite and you came to record this fantastic episode. I am so grateful for you.
Oh, well, Georgie, anytime. Listen, if you need me back next week, next month, at midnight, anytime at all.
I think we should do this more often, yeah.
Honestly.
Of course, please, Denzel, tell us about the YouTube channel that you're doing, because there's the listeners can go and check out on YouTube.
Oh, thank you, Georgie. Well, honestly, I don't want to make it too much about me because this is about the platform.
Oh, come on. This is about you. Come on, man.
Thank you. I'll take my 2 minutes of fame. So, yeah, I'm AMG Denzel Clarkson, brought up in the UK in North London. I have a Caribbean background from the West Indies. And, yeah, for me, I've, stated earlier, I've always been interested in motor racing and Formula One. I share a platform also with other creative content creators in the space, making sim racing content. So if you're into gaming and simulators, I do a bit of that. Also, I'm a musician also in my spare time, so I play music. And also, a huge fan and inspired by the likes of Georgie, to start even my own kind of things, just on or having podcasts or having kind of spaces on Twitter and places like that as well, where we can have meaningful conversations with fans all over the world from different teams. So you can find me everywhere: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, all the same thing, AMG Denz. And just honestly, it's so brilliant, and I'm really excited about this campaign. And the people like Jorgina as well, they are the real heroes, they are the real goats of this world. And for people like me, it's honestly
I became a god, for God's sake. Yay. So yes, give your voice some love. Go check it out, the channel. It's really amazing, and I really appreciate the time that you actually spent. You took a time to come here and talk about these things. We had a nice conversation, and I hope that we can actually continue these conversations with coming up episodes. Of course, whenever you're free, we can take it a time and we can continue with these whole episodes. So thank you so much for today, Denzel. I really appreciate it, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day as well.
Thank you, Jorgina, and thank you to you and also all the listeners out there. I hope you're having a great day. Stay out of trouble, always push, and be proud of yourselves, because I know all of you guys are working hard and doing some amazing stuff too. So, huge respect to all of you as well. You guys really inspire me, and I'm so thankful.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.